this video, I'm going to build one of the most bonkers gaming PCs I have ever put together, with a liquid-cooled RTX 3090Ti, top-of-the-range Core i9-12900K, and some insane hardware. This is a build truly suited to those who want and can afford the best of the best. Let's do this. The Cooler Master GM27 FQS comes equipped with a 27-inch Quad HD panel, 165Hz refresh rate, and a customizable ARGB stand. With a super fast IPS panel, you aren't sacrificing image quality for response time, while support for FreeSync Premium and NVIDIA G-Sync make it a great all-rounder. Learn more about this awesome panel at the first link in the description below. And a big thanks to Cooler Master for making this video possible. With a build like this, there's just so much great hardware, frankly, I don't really know where to start. Let's kick things off though by taking a look at our motherboard and our CPU. Oh, I am dropping things already. Let's take a look at the motherboard and CPU though. I already alluded to the fact that we'll be using an i9-12900K, but what about a motherboard to pair it up with? The Aorus Z690 Master is the perfect choice. Let me unbox this board and then I'll talk you through some of the truly insane features GeekaWhat have included with their top-end Z690 model. So heavy. High-end motherboards with all this shielding on the back, full metal, are so heavy, it shocks me every time. Oh, and we've got some stickers, because that's exactly what I would have expected with a $500 motherboard. Danger. Danger! We've got an insane amount of cooling for our VRMs and great power delivery for top tier overclocking. We've got support, of course, for the latest DDR5 memory. What is going to be the biggest M.2 NVMe heatsink I've ever seen? I'm not being funny. What M.2 drive is ever getting that hot? I've also then got a PCIe Gen 5 slot here that's white so you can tell it apart. If we flip round to the rear I.O., you've got 10 gigabit Ethernet, you've got more USBs than I could shake a stick at, Wi-Fi 6E, USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type-C. Oh, the whole thing is just absolutely crazy. And boy, are you going to pay a pretty penny for the privilege. It will do a great job though today in our build of providing all of the features that we would expect from a system that frankly costs quite so much money, while allowing us some fantastic overclocking headroom too. Something that's important on the 12900K, one of Intel's top of the range i9 12th gen chips. Now, with a config like this, we of course need to also pick up some great memory and some great storage. For the memory choice, I've gone for this 32GB kit of Corsair's Dominator Platinum RGB. The RGB there is of course the most important part, not any of the speed information, not the heat spreader design, nothing like that. It lights up pretty colours, and what more could we expect? DDR5 memory is definitely still in its infancy, but if you'd like to learn more about this particular kit, we have published a review talking about the advantages this will eventually have over DDR4, which I'd urge you to give a read, and I'll link in the cards now, and of course in the description below. Pull back all of your clips on your DIMM slots and slide the RAM into place. Apply a bit of downward pressure and that will click it in and make sure it's not likely to go anywhere. At this stage of the build, there's only really one more part to go before we go ahead and move the motherboard assembly, as we often call it, into the case. And that is of course the storage. Now, Seagate's FireCuda 530 was, to be honest, the only natural choice for this build. Is it one of the most expensive SSDs on the market? Yes. Does this particular whoa, that's drop counters on 2 or 3 now. Does it come with a heatsink? This particular version, no, you'll pay more for that, but it is incredibly fast. Like 7-8 gigabytes per second fast on the read and the write. None of this, frankly, about, oh, well, it does 7 gigabytes on the read, but the write's like about 4. This smashes it out the park on both. It's amazing. If you've got the money, go and buy one. You won't find, at least not yet, anything better. Once the SSD's in, we can then move the motherboard. I literally nearly dropped that. We're now on 4. Where was I? We can move this over into the case. We'll deal with the cooler in just a little moment, because spoiler alert, it's not the only radiator in the PC build today. Oh no, my friends. It's about to get interesting. This right here is the brand new NZXT H7 Flow, and as the name suggests, it's flowy. That means it's got holes in the front, it's got a mesh front panel, and it's great for the airflow. You get where they're going from now? The new H7 line is great though. We've been really impressed. There's the flow, the non-flow, and the elite. These provide a different aesthetic for different buyers. But for our build today, with the emphasis on cooling, and of course the high power output and heat output of many of our components, it makes sense to go for a case that can really deliver us some dividends in this department. I'm going to go ahead and magically unbox the case, a little something like this. Well, that was easy. Oh, good, nerd. Ow. Definitely wasn't easy. Right, what we're going to do here is we're going to take the case, nearly as big as me, which is an achievement, and then we're going to pop the top panel off. Fun fact, I'm full of fun facts recently, this case is actually toolless, making it really easy, definitely really easy, to go ahead and disconnect all of the side panels. The back one was much more simple, but you couldn't really see that. And then, nice and simply, we can lay the case down flat on its back for the next stage of the process, which is installing the motherboard into the chassis itself. With this motherboard being a full-size ATX design and the case being the same, we can just pop it in the case straight away. No need to check standoffs or anything like that. Plus, it's got a built-in rear I/O shield, meaning you haven't actually got to go ahead and complete any preparation, shall we say, before this stage. Grab yourself the screws from the motherboard box and go ahead and fasten the motherboard into place. You've of course got lots of screws, so make sure all of them are fastened down. I think there's 8 or 9 for us today, and that will ensure the motherboard isn't likely to go anywhere and is of course supported when we add in other heavier components like the GPU, CPU cooler, all that good stuff. Once the board's in, I'm actually going to go ahead and just pop, it's getting a bit heavier now, pop the case back up in the right orientation for the next stage, which I think is going to be going ahead and popping in the CPU cooler. Now, normally with a cooler, you just kind of go, yeah, that'll look good at the front or that'll look good at the top, and you just whack it wherever. But because we've got a GPU that also has a radiator, we need to keep that in mind. Now, our GPU rad, I'm pretty sure is 240mm. Oh, so I think the GPU one will be better suited at the top, and then our 360 at the front, where 3 RGB fans mounted up front is most definitely going to look a lot better than, of course, having 2 for our GPU cooler. Let's go ahead then and pop the radiator in for the CPU cooler, all the mounting hardware, and fasten down our water bot. Don't forget, the all-important thermal paste. We'll deal with the wiring just a little bit later. These cool RGB fans as well from NZXT look awesome, and I've got a few more to throw in our build today to make sure it looks absolutely perfect. Right then, with that installed, oh, that was bad. Action replay. The box opens from the bottom. We nearly had, well, it doesn't really bear thinking about what really nearly kind of probably could have happened there. But this right here is the RTX 3090Ti water-cooled version from our friends over at Aorus and GeekaWhat. Right, so that's the actual graphics card. And then if we take this out nice and carefully, oh, right. I thought that was 240mm. That is not 240mm. Change of plan. I think it would work if we flipped the radiator and had the radiator tubes at the bottom. But I think what might also work is if we do move the CPU cooler radiator to the top with the tubes on this side over here, and then we pop the GPU on at the front. So I do apologize. Bear with me. We're going to go ahead and try and get these installed and try and get things actually working. Proper planning prevents situations like this, but I make these mistakes, so you don't have to. So let's go ahead and see if that works just a little bit better. I promise it'll all be worth it in the end for our nice super chilly temperatures that we are sure to achieve with a system like this. After much trial and tribulation, our radiators, both of them are installed. Very unceremonious of me. It wasn't an easy thing, and we did have to swap them about in ways I thought we weren't going to have to. But they're in, and there's only one more thing we need to do, is to pop the power supply in. I've also picked up these awesome easy DIY fab cable extensions to help finish the aesthetic of our build off. The last thing anyone wants in a gorgeous build like this is some manky cables. NZXT's C1000, by the way, is our power supply of choice, something we've covered in more detail over on the website. I'm going to go ahead and get this power supply all screwed in and wired up, and I'll meet you in a moment for some performance numbers. First though, in typical GeekaWhat style, it's time for an awesome montage. Awesome stuff! Now we've seen just how good this fully liquid cooled system looks when it's all powered up, it's now time to take a look at the temperatures, at the performance, and see if our water-cooled 3090 Ti, a card which can typically run about 85 Celsius, does the business. Let's do this. Let's take a look first of all at Battlefield 2042. At 4K high settings with DLSS enabled, we pulled in 145 frames per second on average. While doing this, we monitored the GPU temperatures, and the card never went above 57 degrees Celsius. Wow. And before you ask, yes, it was a similar story in other titles too. Take a look at COD Vanguard, for example. 4K, high settings with DLSS enabled and set to performance mode, we achieved 178 frames per second on average. For those asking why we're not tested at 1440 or 1080p, this is why. When you can get nearly 200 frames at 4K, why would you play at any other resolution? Forza Horizon 5, once again, another great game story today. 4K, high settings, we achieved 107 frames per second on average. 107 is pretty incredible in Forza, a game that's harder to run and where you only need 60 FPS or above, given of course the fact it's a racing title. Moving on to Apex Legends, next up, 4K high settings in this game, we saw 160 frames per second on average. That breaks the 140 FPS that Apex often caps out at 4K high settings, creating a truly phenomenal, one-of-a-kind gaming experience. To round things off, we also tested out a bit of Fortnite, and at 1080p competitive settings, achieved over 300 frames per second. I think this may well just be our highest competitive frame rate ever testing Fortnite on any system, any GPU, any CPU config. We got an incredible set of results here, and the water-cooled 90 Ti really did do the business. Overall, this is a system that if you've got deep enough pockets, is definitely sure not to disappoint, with great frame rates, great aesthetics, and some great performance.